It was a 17-year-old high school student who recorded the video of a Minneapolis police officer pressing his knee into George Floyd's neck for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. Floyd died after begging for air. We all saw that. Darnella Frazier posted the video on Facebook. It led to protests around the world and a renewed demand to end police brutality against black people. Seth Cobin is Frazier's attorney. He joins us first on CBS This Morning. Seth Cobin, thank you so much for joining us. You know, Darnella Frazier, if it hadn't been for her video, this could have been a very different story, so people are very grateful to her. Can you tell us why she happened to be on the scene that day, what she was doing?
Ms. Frazier was watching her 9-year-old cousin who asked to go to the store. And being that she was only 9 and wasn't old enough to go by herself, my client brought her there. She had no intention of stumbling upon this historic event.
Yeah, so that means the 9-year-old cousin must have seen it too.
In fact, that's true. My client is 17. There was a 9-year-old present, and from what I've heard, there was at least one other teenager there who watched this event. This murder took place in front of children. It's very disturbing to me.
Well, yeah. What made her start recording, Seth?
Well, from what she describes, she was about 3 storefronts away, and she saw these police officers extracting this gentleman from his car and doing so fairly roughly. And my client has seen a lot of police brutality in her neighborhood. There's a lot of violence directed against her community. And she wanted to document this. So when she reached the scene and she saw this man on the ground with a police officer kneeling on his neck, she pulled out her camera and started recording. She knew that without this record, these officers would escape consequences altogether. The world would never know what had happened that day. I don't believe she had any idea she was going to witness a murder. She thought this was just another act of police brutality, the sort of thing that unfortunately is routine in her neighborhood. It escalated into something much greater than that.
It also seems at times Officer Chauvin and Officer Tao both looked at her dead in the camera. Did she feel that too, that they were looking at her?
She reported that they were staring directly at her the entire time. Officer Tao was shouting at people to get back on the curb. There were a lot of people on that curb. They were shouting at Officer Chauvin to get off this poor man's neck. Tao kept yelling at them, get back on the curb, get back on the curb. If he can talk, he can breathe. They were staring directly at my client, her cousin, and everyone else on that curb for the entire 8+ minutes that it took to kill this man.
Did that frighten her, the way they were looking at her?
I think she was utterly terrified. She knew that here she was, a 17-year-old black woman. She was as vulnerable as anybody. At any minute, she could become a victim as well. She was very scared for her life. She was very scared for her safety and her cousin's safety. But she knew if she didn't record this, no one would know what had happened. People aren't just going to believe a teenager when she says, hey, I saw these cops murder this man. People would not necessarily believe her at all. Her word wouldn't carry the weight that a police officer's word carries, but this video carries a great deal of weight. This video is why these officers were fired. This video is why these officers were charged with murder.
Yeah, a lot of people, as I said, are very grateful that there is video. Now, we know by looking at her videotape that none of the police officers intervened. Did she say did any of the bystanders try to intervene at any point?
Well, if you watch the video, you can hear everyone, including my client, yelling at the officers to stop, telling Chauvin to get off this man's neck. In fact, there was a first responder, a Minneapolis firefighter, I believe, who came upon the scene, told the officers, I'm a first responder. This man can't breathe. Get off his neck. You got to get off of him. And they told her, like everyone else, get back on the curb, stand back, get back from us.
And how is she doing, Seth? Is she getting any professional help? I talked to her grandmother last week who told me that Darnella is really a very shy girl, a good student, and very quiet. What is she like and how is she doing?
That's a pretty accurate description of her. She's really a typical 17-year-old. She's not a community leader. She's a regular person who did an extraordinary thing. And this has been very hard on her. She's definitely traumatized. She's had trouble sleeping. When she closes her eyes, she sees it all over again. This is a really difficult thing for her to cope with. Her entire life has been turned upside down. She went from just another 17-year-old going to high school, working her job, having her friends, a boyfriend, looking forward to graduating next year. She went from that to being the center of media attention, the center of the whole world's attention. Everything's focused on her now. And it's changed her life in many ways. And I don't think these changes are anything she ever wanted. However, she's coping remarkably well. She's a very positive person. She is getting some professional help, thankfully. This has been really hard on her, but she knows she did the right thing. And ultimately, I think she's going to turn out all right.
Oh, we all hope so, Seth. We all hope so, and we certainly thank her. Seth, thank you very much for taking the time. We really appreciate it.